All right. So this is going to be the first review from the haul, some of the haul from the comics sent by my good friend Chris, aka the Mount Vernon Kid. Chris, thank you once again for these. And we're going to start things off with the first book I read, which is the first volume of New Superman, Super-Man, I should say, which is Volume 1, Made in China. So for those who remember, a little while ago, Gene Yun Lang, who had written, most of you guys would know best, he had done the Avatar comics, well, the first two, which were of middling success. He has done a book series that's going to be a Disney Plus series called American Born Chinese. And he's also done the Shang-Chi book over at Marvel. He also did the Superman Smashes the Klan comic. He's been doing a lot. He's been doing a lot of Marvel and DC books. And I think he's good. I do think some of his stuff... I haven't read Chinese Born American, but I have read his two books for Avatar. Well, I think he wrote a third one called The Rift, which actually wasn't that bad. But the first two are like, I don't want to read these ever again. And Gene Yun Lang had written... I do like his Shang-Chi series so far. I haven't read the third book, which wraps up everything, but the two storylines of Shang-Chi he's written have been really good. But yeah. So this was his comic that he did called New Superman, which was set at the beginning of the DC Rebirth era. If you guys remember, they did talk about like how Superman, the New 52 Superman, was different than the pre-52 Superman, was living in that world, but then New 52 Superman died, and then it's weird because they that was such a weird Death of Superman story where the New 52 Superman meets the Chinese Superman, but not this one, and then there's new pre-52 Superman who survived the Flashpoint event, and I don't even think they remember that book. I think they just retconned it. I legit think they just retconned that whole New 52 Superman is different from the pre-52 Superman who took over that role. I think they just did that. But anyway, so this story basically is that this boy named Kong Kenan, who is just a total shit. I have no other words other than he is a complete shit. Has been brought in by a group called the Ministry of Self-Reliance to create a Justice League of China in order to combat with the rise of supervillains, as well as compete with the rise of other metahumans here in America. Basically, it's like a Cold War, even though they do bring up, yes, China does have premier superheroes called the Great Ten, which they do appear in here. The story does focus on Kong Kenan, who, like I said, is an asshole, and when he gets the powers of Superman, a kind of power similar to Superman, he also meets the Superman and Wonder Woman. They hyphen it because it's supposed to, get it? Because it's supposed to be, Chinese knockoff. I think that's what Gene Yun Lang was trying to do. But yeah, the Batman and Superman of China, the three of them make the Justice League of China, and serve the group of the Association of Self-Reliance, which is not funded by the Chinese government. Whoopsie. And their main villain is the Freedom Fighters of China. Let's talk about that right now. So yes, you heard that right. The Freedom Fighters of China are the main villains of this story. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in because that's our antagonist. You gotta remember, China is still like a communist group, and these guys are trying to fight for peace, democracy, and truth, justice, and democracy. That's what the Freedom Fighters are fighting for, and they're considered the bad guys, which, again, I talked about this in the Ra's al Ghul review not too long ago, where I talked about how as a writer, if you run into this problem of making your villain sympathetic, then your reader's going to go, then why is he the bad guy? So you have to come up with something so dramatically evil for them that comes out of nowhere to justify why they're the bad guys. In this, the Freedom Fighters of China are, led by Kong's dad, who is known as General Flying Dragon. Flying Dragon General, excuse me. Flying Dragon General is his father, and they're trying to they're pretending to be supervillains to try to overthrow the communist dictatorship of China and try to usher in a democracy. And yeah, spoiler alert, this again, like I was saying earlier, is that the reason why I think Gene realizes that what he's doing is like, oh, I'm making them sympathetic, and to a degree he does, of making the freedom fighters of China sympathetic, because that's what they are. But then he does this left turn moment where just a completely out of left field moment where he has they don't even go further into it, but Kong's uncle, who is known as Human Firecracker, and use a genetically modified Starro to take control of people and force them to accept democracy. I'm like, and thankfully they do call it out, like, that's the exact opposite of democracy. And so I was like, so I guess you guys just needed to write something like that in order to kind of justify why they're the bad guys. But I haven't read the whole series yet. There's still I think there's 3 volumes of New Superman, and then there's New Superman and the Justice League of China, so it's 4 books in total. So hopefully, Chris sent me the 2nd volume, and that's where he meets Superman and Lex Luthor. So I wonder how much is that going to play into all of this. Anyway, the artwork is pretty good. I think it's very fluid. I also like the supporting cast of Batman and Wonder Woman. Yes, they do use the hyphens. I really do appreciate that. That again, it plays the Chinese knockoff. I especially like Chinese Batman, he's overweight, but he depends more on his mind than his fighting style. And he also is like, because I'm Batman. And I'm like, of course you are. The villains all have pretty generic names, but I think that's the point. And I do like the Kong's whole backstory, in that he's lost his mother, and he's now under the very group, the Ministry of Self-Reliance, that he believes killed his mother. So he's trying to get answers. I do think that he the first 6 issues of this book is really just him trying to learn that, oh yeah, because he's an asshole. He's this self-absorbed asshole, and he has to learn these lessons in order to be like what the meaning of Superman is. That's his whole thing, is that he's trying to learn to be like Superman, or at the very least give a shit about people. So I appreciate that. I really do like that. He is kind of an insufferable douchebag, though, for a good chunk of the book. So hopefully, by the end of it, it's like, okay, now he's suddenly done this heel turn and to be like, yeah, cool. Also, I like the idea that he's not really getting his powers from a genetic code of Superman. It's more like he's tapping into the the key energy of himself to activate these powers. So hence why, because I've seen images of him having this yin-yang symbol where this House of L symbol is. So I'm like, oh, okay, now it's starting to make sense to me of why he has that symbol. I thought it was just there for design-wise. So now it makes more sense to me. All in all, it's a pretty decent book. Do I think Gene Yun Lang's better work is in other books? Yeah, Superman Smashes the Klan and the Shang-Chi books are awesome. This one's just good. I think this is good. At least for a first volume, it's good. I will say, however, maybe my opinion will change come 2nd volume, and if Chris sends me, maybe my opinion will change, because there are 3 other books. But the first one, it's a rough start, and it does. I think Gene Yun Lang thought he was only going to get 6 issues, and then it's like, nope, it's ongoing. He's like, really? I get to tell more? Cool beans. So it does feel a little rushed in that regard. All in all, if you're interested, I would say go check this out. You can still find it online. It's definitely a lot of fun. Anyway, so Chris, thank you once again for this comic. This is pretty good. I'll be checking out Volume 2 as soon as I get to it. Like I said, he did send me Volume 2 as well. But other than that, if you guys have read New Superman, let me know in the comments below what you guys think of it. Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the multiverse.